3,000 years ago when humans got there. So Aboriginals have been in Australia for a very, very, very long time. The point of entry is believed to be the Kimberley, which is the northwestern part of Australia. I'll show you a map in a second. And there's three different theories at the moment of how they migrated around Australia and spread throughout the continent. The direct route makes sense. They just landed and they went off in all different directions and spread around Australia. The one that I tend to believe is the coastal route, because they've been following the coast the whole time, that they would tend to stick to the coast because that's where all their food source was, and the centre of Australia would have been a tough place to survive. For me, I think they would have followed the coast around and then slowly moved inland. Alternate theory based on fossil evidence proposed by a few people about 10 years ago. Yeah. Now, the evidence of Aboriginals coming into Australia at that time is everywhere. And one of the largest evidence we find of when humans move into an area is, of course, the mammal extinction that follows. Because, of course, we need something to eat, and we generally eat the biggest things if we can. So by 46,000 years ago, all large mammals weighing over than 100 kilograms, poof, disappeared. The new settlers are, of course, the likely suspects, and due to the Ice Age, of course, they were avoiding Europe, and so everybody was spreading down into Australia and Indonesia at the time. Now, these are some great extinct Australian animals that not many people know about. I quite like them. You have a giant flightless bird comparable in size to the New Zealand moa, and of course you'll learn a lot about the moa once we reach New Zealand. An extinct bird that was hunted to extinction by the Maoris once they first got to New Zealand. Giant goanna, 23 feet long. That's a goanna. You wouldn't want to run into a goanna that's 23 feet long, because he would only take one bite, really. Then the quinkin as well, which a few of my stranger friends up in far north Queensland believe still exists to this day in the remote forest, and if you hunt for long enough you'll find him. But he was basically a crocodile that lived inland, and he attacked, would be quite a ferocious predator. He's only 10 feet long, but because of course the teeth and the physiology of close similar to a crocodile, he would have been quite dangerous to run into. You also have this guy, which is like a rhino-sized marsupial, but he was 6 foot high and weighed about 1,000 kilograms as well. You also have the giant wallaby, about 130 kilograms. So these are very, very large animals compared to the ones today. And moving right up to the modern, most recent time, we have the thylacine, or Tasmanian wolf. Has anybody ever heard of this guy? Largest carnivorous marsupial in Australia, and it was the introduction of the dingo. The dingo is not a native species to Australia, technically. It was basically dogs that were brought over by the Aboriginals as they migrated into Australia, and very recently, in fact, as their companions. So the introduction of the dingo obviously came in and took all the food that the thylacine was eating, and so it declined. In 1900, it was extinct in the wild, and in 1930, it was extinct in captivity, and is now in the history pages. Now, the evidence we have of Aboriginals moving into Australia as we go to human skeletal remains, the best one is Mungo Man, and he was 42,000 years old, so quite an old guy. Discovered in 1974, and the interesting thing with this one, and this is the first recorded burial of this sort, the oldest burial of this sort, was sprinkled with red ochre and hands were clasped together. It was a ceremonial burial. This guy was somebody important when they buried him. They didn't just pop him in a ditch. They put a whole heap of stuff with him when they buried him. Abnormally tall. He was 6 foot 4 inches. Now today that doesn't sound, well, that sounds tall, but that doesn't sound amazingly tall. Back then the average height of the Aboriginals was about 5 foot. So he was a big step above everybody else. Although there was one race of Aboriginals living on an island up in the Kimberley who were over 7 foot tall during that time. And unfortunately, they have disappeared from the records. But 7 foot high giants did exist in Australia for a large period of time. Now, here's one for you. The mitochondrial DNA suggests that Mungo man is not related to Eve. Does everyone understand that? Yeah, because he was 42,000 years ago, so his common most recent ancestor maybe lived 250,000 years ago or so forth. And this is just a diagram of Australia and where you'll find a lot of these human remains and the evidence that has given us these sort of conclusions of how Aboriginal spread through Australia. And depending on how you date the sites, give you a variance of how long ago. But we've got sites up to 50,000 years ago, 40 to 50 depending on how you date it. And actual human material, well, Mungo man is pretty much the oldest. Now, the differences between the Aboriginal tribes. Now, if anybody has spent a large amount of time in Australia, you might have travelled, you might have met different Aboriginals from different tribes around Australia. And the thing that is striking is how different they are to each other in physical features. And in some respects, also their culture and things that they do. And the reason is microevolution, or what we call genetic drift, caused by isolation. So they spread out all around Australia. Australia's a pretty big country, and they kept to themselves. Territorialism, whatever you like to call it. They kept to themselves, and so each individual tribe, over 70,000 years, sort of evolved slightly different to the other ones. Here's just a few shots of different Aboriginals around Australia, and the differences in their facial structure, and the differences, of course, in their body structure as well, mainly to do with climate. Of course, we have the tropics up the top, and we have quite cold down the bottom, so their different body shapes would be to do with where they are. Now, Homo sapiens appeared 195,000 years ago. 140, we started doing long-distance trade, so we started to cross over out of Africa. Clothing and jewellery, about 72. The Cultural Revolution, as they call it, happened about 50,000 years ago. That's when we really stopped being heathens, or however you like to call us, tribal people. We started to actually get a little bit of culture and music, and of course, cave art came not too far after. But the big one is agriculture. Agriculture turned up 10,000 years ago. This enabled some of the clans, some of the tribe, to not have to work anymore to find food. And that freed them up to do things like think, maybe paint, or create music. And that's where really culture began. Of course, the next step, of course, is writing. You've got to write that culture down. That happened about 5,000 years ago. The European migration, well, it was just after the Ice Age. Basically, we couldn't get up any further north. They didn't want to. It was cold. After the Ice Age, then we started to spread up into Europe about 40,000 years ago or so. Generally, the latest research is more to the 40,000 than the 50. And of course, wherever humans go, mammals disappear. And so, as soon as humanity went into Europe, and around about 40 to 35,000 years ago, you find that the giant deer disappear, the bison, and even the woolly mammoth disappear off the planet. Onto the American migration, which is a little bit more complicated, in fact, once again, because an ice age just crept in the middle there. So, first, between 25 to 22,000 years ago, we crossed into America via the Bering Strait, which was a land bridge at the time, and crossed in, but then we had an ice age between 22 and 18,000 years ago. And that it was a glacial maximum, and the glacier, or the ice sheet, came all the way down to the 55th parallel.